got a call some months later because they couldn't find, honestly, they couldn't find a big name to play that part. So they were like, well, let's see.
They couldn't find a big name to win the part?
They could not.
Because he was so dastardly and dreadful?
I don't know. I think also the director, there were no big names that he wouldn't sign off on someone just because they were a name. He hadn't found the guy he wanted. So they went back and looked at all their audition tapes and stumbled on mine and said, that guy was great, who is he? And I'd almost given up on Hollywood. I'd come back to New York, I was doing a play, and I got a call from my agent who never called me. And literally they said, your agent called. I was like, he never called me. And he said, they want to screen test you for that movie. And lo and behold, I miraculously came out for a screen test and got cast in it. And found myself a month later on the Paramount lot playing one of the leads in this big movie with Patrick and Demi and Whoopi. And so the whole time I just felt so lucky to have the job, and it was an incredible work experience. And I did feel doing that film, I remember when I first read the script, I thought, this idea just works. Like, this is a great concept. I honestly felt the same way about Scandal. That was another one of those projects when I saw Scandal, you never know if something's gonna hit or not, but I thought this works as a piece of entertainment. It's funny, it's emotional, it's scary, it's suspenseful.
So you have that sense that something could become a phenomenon at that early stage?
I did have that feeling, but you of course never know, and it could as easily go off the rails and no one would ever see it. And so the whole time I just pinched myself that I was grateful to have the job. So, and Patrick was such a wonderful spirit and I just loved him. And so making the movie was just a blessing. And then no one had heard about it. The year before it came out, I kept saying, oh man, this movie goes. And they're like, what? They didn't really promote it much, and somehow audience just discovered it. And it was an overnight, just ridiculous hit. And then, of course, yeah, that changed my situation.
So let's come all the way to the present now. I hear you just wrapped production on a movie called The Belko Experiment.
Right.
For you, those of you who are fans of Guardians of the Galaxy, this is the same writer, director, James Gunn. And I've heard it described as Hunger Games in an office. Is that true?
That's a good description, actually.
I think we could get on board with that concept.
Yeah, that's right.
Why should we be excited for this movie?
It's very original. James actually didn't direct it. James, who wrote and directed Guardians of the Galaxy and a number of other fabulous movies, James wrote and produced it. And a really brilliant Australian director named Greg McLean, who directed an outrageous Australian film called Wolf Creek. If anybody is, into scary movies, that movie will freak you out. And Greg actually directed it. And James is a really smart, incredibly clever writer who manages to scare the shit out of you, but do it with a sense of humor. And the Belko Experiment is basically about an American company in South America. And you don't quite know what they do. There's some, sort of secret branch of the US government, but you don't quite know what they do. I run the company, and we're down in South America, and all of a sudden our building is locked down, and we are told over our speaker system that if we don't start killing each other, people will start to be eliminated. And we don't know if it's a terrorist takeover or what is going on, or if it's someone, after the CIA, we don't know what is going on. And we have to then decide what to do, and at first we don't take it seriously, and people start to die. And we have to take matters into our own hands and decide whether we start eliminating each other or wait for ourselves to be killed. So it's rather like Hunger Games in that way, and it becomes this, really what it is, it's a psychological kind of study of how people who are just normal coworkers turn into animals.
Now, obviously, so many fans of yours here today, you work in front of the camera, but you also do a lot of work behind the camera as a director, both in the world of features and, of course, in television, and you've directed a few episodes of Scandal.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, what do you derive from the directing side as a pleasure, stimulation as an artist that you don't get out of the acting? How's it different?
Well, they're really complementary, I find, but the thing that's so extraordinary about being a director, particularly a film director, or when you're creating a television series, like I did last year with this show called Divide, where when you're the central kind of storyteller, you are just that. You're the central storyteller, and you interface with every single person. As you know, there are you know, over 100 people that contribute to a piece of filmed entertainment. And as the director and often producer, you're the person who really interfaces with everybody and helps kind of shape and guide that and learn from all these creative folks. Whereas an actor, you're there to play your part and do that and collaborate mainly with the actors and the director and the camera people, but you don't have that you know, intimacy with all the other departments. So that's the thing I find so inspiring about directing.
Now, your directorial debut is a movie called Walk on the Moon. Put it on your Netflix queue if you haven't seen it. It's an amazing movie.
Oh, thanks.
But something that intrigued me about that movie is you're thought of someone who's had quite a charmed existence, born with the talent that you have, the family that you have, and the looks and the height won't embarrass him. But this movie that you chose for your directorial debut is really a movie about what happens when life doesn't turn out how you'd planned, how you'd hoped, when your dreams don't manifest, and how you navigate that disappointment. It's such an interesting topic for you to be drawn to. Can you talk a little bit about why you found that story you so wanted to tell?
Yeah, you know, for those who don't know, To Walk on the Moon, which stars Diane Lane, Viggo Mortensen, and Leo Schreiber, was the story set in 1969 of a young woman who was really up to the 50s, who married the first guy she ever slept with at 17 years old and wakes up at 32 with a teenage daughter and a young son going, how did I get here? How did this become my life? And she loves her family, but suddenly feels trapped, and her daughter's having a sexual awakening at 14 years old, and it's all too much. And then Viggo Mortensen crosses her path, and you can imagine what happens.
There's a waterfall scene. It's worth the price of admission.
So I made that film when I was about that age, and although I'm not a woman, and I'm not, you know, I wasn't in her circumstances, I very much, you know, was a young man in my early 30s with kids and a career and in a long relationship, feeling similar pressures about, did I choose my life or did my life choose me? And I just really related to her, and also the phenomenon of sometimes in life, we need to sort of set fire to the house in order to rebuild the house. And that's kind of what happens. You know, a lot of times we have to break through, and there's destruction that happens to our lives in order to re-authenticate ourselves. And I very much related to that. And as a man, even though it really is a woman's story, and I read that script and just was so moved by it.
Well, I know they're all chomping at the bit for their Fitz fix, so we'd better get to Scandal. The trailer last week. How many people saw the trailer last week? So steamy. And also, what about this divorce? What can you tell us? Anything?
Well, I'm only telling you guys. Don't tell Shonda I said it. I would walk out of this room and I would not have a job. So as people know who are Scandal fans, Fitz and Olivia are finally together. It's not going to be easy. So where we go, and I booted Melly out the door because she helped murder 17 people, which she claims was not her fault at all, but I disagree with that. So it really, you know, where we launch into this season is looking, well, what does that look like and what does that mean for Liv and Fitz to try and be together? And yes, it's hot and sexy and fantasy fulfillment, but is the reality match the fantasy? And I don't mean so much, you know, I think it's clear Fitz and Olivia, you know, what they feel about each other is deep and genuine and real. But what I find really fascinating, where we really get into exploring, is the impact of their circumstances. It's like, okay, be careful what you wish for. What does it mean when the President of the United States and the woman he loves, who is not his wife, suddenly try and make it work in the fishbowl that is the White House and all the pressures, and an ex-wife who has been turned out of the house, and you know, so yeah, hijinks ensue, I guess is what I think.
So one of the things that's very intriguing about Scandal is we navigate some really morally murky waters, and these characters do some really extreme and outrageous things. yet we stay so connected to them and so committed to them. So what is the secret sauce that retains our commitment to the characters when the things that they're doing are so out there?
Well, I think number one is it just is a testament to Shonda Rhimes' genius, because she knows how to do that, and she also does another thing where she creates such outrageous, extreme situations, which in anybody else's hands would just be, soap opera that you just melodrama. Because it's like operatic, some of the choices she makes, but she somehow keeps everybody so human. And I think that the other way I would answer your question is that I think what people relate to about all of us is our humanness. We're all, in some sense, she's created these idealized characters, the President of the United States, and, Carrie is Carrie, and Olivia Pope, and she's this kind of iconic woman, and yet she's flawed and human, and I can be, romantic and great in some ways, and yet totally flawed, and sometimes dark and evil and mean and misbehave, and yet I think it's those very contrasts that make us relate to these characters, because we're human, and then Shonda just takes it to an outrageous extreme, oh yeah, Cyrus and James, they just love each other, but Cyrus was going to have him killed. Oh, right. Oh. Cyrus married a whore, but maybe they'll be happy together, and he's a wonderful hooker. And you're like, what?
So, you may play the most powerful man in the world, but within the world of the show, and the world that creates the show, you're really living in a woman's world. So how does that challenge you? How does that raise your game? Talk a little bit about the women and their strength and power, that dynamic in the world of Scandal.
Yeah, I mean, it mirrors my real life was like that as well. Father of 2 grown daughters and a powerful woman who's my wife. But I find it, I've always been drawn to powerful, dynamic women in my professional life and in my personal life, and Shonda Land is full of that. It's all about that. And as a man, I find it, as you just said, I find it ups my game, and I find it inspires me every day. And I think that the way I view it is I feel like I'm my best version of a man when I'm in collaboration or partnership in whatever way on absolutely equal footing with the women in my life, both whether professionally or personally, and that complements whatever I bring to the party. The culture of Shonda, I don't, it doesn't feel competitive or threatening in any way. It's more inspiring and challenging.
And in the world of television, obviously the scheduling is so intense. You spend so much time with these people. Shonda Rhimes is running an empire. Part of her genius is being a storyteller, but part of the genius when you're putting together the world of a show is being a leader creatively, being a leader in the production and creation of the show. What do you think are Shonda's special qualities, both as a storyteller but as a creative leader of this ecosystem which is creating this story? If you had to put your finger on sort of the beating heart of her genius, what would you say?
Shonda's just very clear about her voice, and I find she's an incredible collaborator because she's very clear about what she wants, and at the same time, because she's very clear, she's very collaborative. Like, for example, last night we were shooting a scene, and I was really struggling to understand what it was, because often in Scandal, people are, what they're feeling, what's going on is very different than what they have to be saying. And it's so complex, especially 5 years in, I was struggling with it. And, I reached out to her immediately, and we had this long email exchange back and forth where she just opened up to me about what she was thinking. And the way that she phrased it was, she said, Tony, first of all, I love I'm going to quote her, "I love that you have thoughts. I love our collaboration." She said, "As in all of our show, as you know, the text is the text, which means you're going to say what I wrote." But that said, I would never tell you how to play it, but here's what I was thinking. And she launched into this incredibly complex, in-depth answers to the various questions I had asked, which, you know, and finished it with such an appreciation of the fact that I had, you know, so it was weird. It was this combination of openness and yet absolute certainty about what she was after, and that's a very rare combination of things in leadership, you know.
Now, fans of Scandal, one of the things we really love are the monologues, these powerhouse dramatic monologues. And I remember watching a behind-the-scenes interview with Michael Douglas about shooting Wall Street with Oliver Stone, who you've also worked with. And they said to him, you know, what was one of the most challenging things about the performance of Gordon Gekko? And he said, getting through that dialogue, developing the breath control to do that. Your background is in theatre. Does that give you an edge when it comes to delivering a monologue on Scandal?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, all of us on Scandal, I can't think of anyone in our cast who didn't start out in the theater or work fairly regularly in the theater, because Shonda writes these arias, which are really theatrical monologues, and they're tricky in two ways. Number one, you just need to have the chops to learn that and pull that off, and we have to speak, as you know, very fast. So you can't sort of plod your way through it or it just doesn't work. And you also have to have an ability to do that in a way that feels very, very natural and isn't like, I'm going to give a speech now and then you're going to give a speech, because we do this sort of dueling monologues thing. So yeah, it is very much being able to, you know, comes down to breath control and figuring out where to breathe and what the rhythms of a piece are, and so it feels very much like doing a play every week.
Speaking of dueling monologues, who monologues everyone? Who monologues in your life? I'll go home then.
Bellamy, forget about it.
Melly wins the monologue.
Oh my
stage.
God, she's just amazing. I mean, there's somebody, you know, Jeff Perry too, you know, Cyrus has a, but there's something about, I, you know, do this a lot with Bellamy. She's just an extraordinary actress, and when I watch, you know, there was a episode where I don't think I spoke. Sometimes it's not dueling monologues, it's Fitz getting yelled at by women. But there was a scene where Melly was drunk and we were in the dining room and she's drinking moonshine.
That's a great scene.
And she gave this monologue where she was drunk, and you know, being drunk, acting drunk is a very, very tricky thing to do. Because the second you start acting drunk, no one believes that you're drunk. And you know, there's not much I can say other than go watch it if you haven't, because she's just incredible.
So one of the things that Scandal was extremely savvy and strategic about was harnessing social media to consolidate the fan base, to grow the fan base. Talk a little bit about who at ABC coordinated that effort, got everyone on board, kind of helped you all work together and understand how to kind of bring that to the benefit of the show, and how you've seen that benefit the show and your connection with the fans.
Yeah, first of all, social media has been everything for Scandal, and those of you who have been a part of it, you've made our show a success. So thanks. And we love collaborating with you guys, really, in that relationship. It started with Kerry Washington. Kerry is much smarter than the rest of us. And Kerry had her finger on that pulse already. And I think the way it happened is Kerry went to Shonda and said, we have to get on social media. I think Shonda also was very into Twitter, but it was fairly early days, and it wasn't that long ago, you know. And so Shonda said, you're absolutely right, and Kerry said, what about live tweeting and starting to engage the audience right up front? So Shonda and Kerry talked about it, and they talked to us as a cast and said, look, we want to do this. Is everybody on board? And I was terrified of Twitter. I was like, I don't know, you know, that's not me, I'm too old, I don't know, I can't communicate, and you know, that's what's wrong with our society, communicating in 149 characters, you know, I was very judgmental of it. And I said, but when Shonda tells me to do something, I do it. So we all agreed that we would live tweet during our broadcasts, And then they got ABC on board, and ABC had a point person, and they sort of assigned, because they wanted to get into that as well. But really what happened with the show was, from our very first show, we started tweeting at, our show was then on at 10 o'clock at night, now it's on at 9 o'clock, but from the first show, we all get on Twitter 2 hours a night, East Coast and West Coast, and we do the work. And we formed real relationships with people. So what happened was the audience discovered Twitter, discovered Scandal before the network did, I believe. And this is no slam on ABC, but I don't think ABC quite knew what they had, but the audience got it instantaneously, and we developed this profound loyalty of our gladiators, and it caught fire. It wasn't really into our second season that there was this sort of brush fire that was called Scandal, and then the press started realizing it, and then it caught in media, and I think gradually in the second season, ABC were like, wow, we have a tiger by the tail here. And then, but it really was social media that made our show a hit. And we're very committed to it and try and keep that up every day, and we're so grateful for it.
So one of the things that Scandal got raves about right from the beginning was the costume design, and your president, there's no dad jeans, there's no sloppy polos for your president. This is a very elegant, Camelot-esque presidential figure. Can you talk a little bit about the work you did with the costume designer, how you developed the look of the president, and I noticed that she reintroduced you as Brooks Brothers as well, that became part of the wardrobe for the show.
Right, Lynn Paolo is just a brilliant costume designer who I had worked with. I had directed a pilot for NBC a few years ago and hired Lynn, and just thought her work was amazing and admired, all of the work that she had done. But I can't take a lot of credit for it because, the thing about a great costume designer is that you walk into your trailer and you're in a fitting, and she has some clothes there, and you put them on, and you go, yep, that's the guy. And it's a tremendous help as an actor because you often find your character in the clothes that you wear. And so, that said, Lynn is very collaborative, and I just wanted to push Fitz a little bit away from the very conservative, we wanted him to be classic, and he can't be fashion forward, and yet we wanted him to be youthful and, just not too buttoned down. So, to me, what Lynn did that was amazing was, it was all about his accessories, the ties that he wears. They're not flashy ever, but they're just like, nice tie. Wow, that suit is cut really well. It's not, just the simple little things that she does, the kind of shirt. I basically wear blue suits and blue shirts and blue ties. But there's this subtle spectrum that Lynn has created that does it. And whenever I am in casual clothes, there's a sexiness to them without ever pushing it or trying too hard. And so, in a way, honestly, that helped me define my own personal style. And I started having to wear a lot of clothes to promote the show. And yes, you mentioned Brooks Brothers. That was really what sort of reignited a relationship between me and Brooks Brothers, because Brooks Brothers, Lynn was like, Brooks Brothers is doing amazing things with their clothes and with their men's line. It's so contemporary, and I think it really will work well on you, and you should check it out. So we tried some Brooks Brothers suit, and I was like, that's right. And they even have a line of clothes in their menswear called Fitzgerald line. I was like, you're kidding me. I wanted to try on some of their clothes just to see how it worked, and it said Fitzgerald, and I was like, that's so weird. And they fit me perfectly. So they custom made some suits, and I tweeted this out. They put inside inside the thing, it said, custom made for President Fitzgerald Thomas Grant III, by Brooks Brothers. I was like, oh, that is so cool. So that just developed a whole relationship, and we've taken it from there.
So last question, and then the last question from me, and then we'll throw to questions from you. Obviously, during the course of your career, you've worked with incredible directors, incredible writers and actors. Obviously, within your own family, you had a large well of wisdom as far as Hollywood is concerned. Of all the pieces of advice that you've been given over the course of your career, what do you find is the piece of advice that you return to again and again in your mind?
There's two. But the one was really from my father.
and I think that was from his father for him, you know, that this is a survivor's game. And the thing I feel most blessed about, as hard as it was starting out as an actor, it was something I knew that I felt maybe not everybody knew, that it wasn't about, you know, it's not about grabbing the brass ring. It's not necessarily about being up here, because I'm up here now, and that's amazing, and I'm grateful for it, or being on the cover of a magazine or whatever it is, or happening to be starring in a TV show or being in a movie, or, you know, it's a continuum, and it's about creating longevity in a career and building a body of work. And you'll have peaks and valleys, and those are an important part of the process, you know, because there's this illusion, particularly in show business, that you gotta be hot all the time, and that there's somebody out there who's hot all the time, and nobody in life is hot all the time. That's a fantasy that we want to create, you know, in any endeavor. We all, of course, want to be it, but it's not reality, and that was incredibly helpful to know. It's something I now know and try and impart to people who maybe are less experienced than me, you know, and it's something I then give myself permission, just put my attention on my work and on the quality of the collaborations that I have, and try and all I try and do is make my work better, and my work is never good enough. And so when you just put your attention on that, there hopefully is just an upward, you know, you know, arc to the graph. Yeah, so as opposed to always thinking, but I'm supposed to be up there, you know, that's an illusion and a delusion, and it's a trap. So that's really in terms of my...
So there was a second piece of advice.
The second one really was when I was 19 years old and wanted desperately to be an actor and had no clue if I could pull it off. You know, and although you would think in the show business family the doors would fly open, it actually wasn't really like that. Early on it felt more of a burden to me, because there's not that much that people can do for you if you want to be an artist. People are like, oh, do you want to be an actor? Great, you know.
There you go.
Yeah, right. So, but my brother-in-law, my sister's husband at the time, was a brilliant jazz musician and very successful, and he's a genius. And I was sort of complaining to him about, I don't know, he said, Tony, when I was your age, I went through exactly the same thing. And what I told myself is I had no idea if I could do what I wanted, if my dreams would come true, but if I commit 100% to my dream, to my passion, either it will be what I think it will be now, or it will lead me to something that I have no idea what that is. But if I don't commit 100% to my passion, then I will be the guy at 40 years old who looks back and goes, oh, maybe I could have done that. You know, maybe I could have, if I'd taken it, maybe I could have. He said, you don't want to be that guy. And he said, maybe I'd be a teacher, I don't know. But and it's the thing that in my darker days, you know, of struggle, literally, when I was sure I couldn't make it work as an actor, when I'd been rejected by everybody, I was like, well, you know what? I made a commitment to do this, and I'm just going to commit until something else reveals itself. And that's something I have come back to, you know, and as I said before, imparted to younger people, you know, the thing, it's everything. So those are the two things that I've...
Commit to your passion, people. Okay, audience questions. I know there's lots. We'll start with you.
I have two from Twitter users. One is, are you going to direct any future episodes? That's from Lana_62. And number two, from D. Lenoto, do you have any theater work coming up soon?
On the first one, I directed the second episode this season, so that'll be on a week from Thursday. Our premiere is Thursday, and the next week will be the one I directed. And then I think they tell me, we haven't said, but I'm going to direct one in the second half of the season as well, of Scandal. In terms of theater work, you know, I don't at the moment, because it's very hard to schedule in with Scandal. That takes about 9 months of the year, and I might next. You just never know. I can only fit in usually one, maybe 2 projects in a hiatus. So, but I'm dying to get back to the theater. So, in the future for sure.
Who's next?
I've been a gladiator since the beginning, so I'm Amanda.
Thank you.
My name is Ellie Persuasion.
Oh, yeah.
When you tweet, and I scream, and my husband's like, I'm tweeting you now, and I'm like, who's the president? He's like, Barack Obama?
Oh, the real president.
Our president. So, thank you so much for, I do have lupus, and I'm also enjoying I like being a gladiator. Helps me get through the days.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
That's not my favorite time of day. I know I got it. I did. That's so dark. Wow, my favorite time of day is I think getting up in the morning and having the day to look forward to is usually my favorite. Having coffee. Yeah. Thanks.
What's your question?
Hi, Tony. Did the name Goldwyn make it harder for you, do you think, as you progressed? Because the way you describe being an actor is what all other actors go through. So was it a hindrance to be Goldwyn?
Yeah, as I was saying before, it was a funny thing. It may have just been my hang-up, frankly. But it felt really hard at the beginning, and then it became this extraordinary blessing as I got a little bit older. In my 20s, when I was starting out, first of all, there was such a high bar for success, so I felt a lot of pressure about that. And then I felt, whether it was true or not, that people sort of looked at me as a Hollywood, like, oh yeah, right, okay, sure, you want to be an actor, right, okay. That I felt I had to doubly prove myself. And again, that may have been not at all what people were thinking, but that was my concern, that I felt I had to, prove my mettle. And so it did feel like a bit of a burden for a few years. As soon as I started, I sort of tackled that head on, and as soon as I started to have some success, particularly after Ghost, and then even more when I became a director, I found myself a part of this legacy that was extraordinary, and I feel so lucky to be a part of it and to be sort of the third generation of something that my grandfather started. And I'm doing my thing in a different way than he or my father or my brother, who's incredibly successful, do. Or my little brother's in the business, and now my kids, my daughter's got her first job. She's a writer. She's on Supergirl, which is a new show that's coming out this year on CBS. And so Anna now is off. So like this multi-generational thing in our family, and everybody following their passions, and my wife's career, which is very successful. I just feel very, very lucky to be a part of that, and so it's very cool.
Very cool.
We have a question over here.
Hi there. I just want to ask you a question. It may be kind of controversial, but it was a conversation that we had. It's great that you and Liv are together, but what I want to know with the writing, how is it that so many people pull for the mistress, but in real life, if the same thing was going on in their own house, they wouldn't go for it, because so many people cheer for Team Liv, which is great. But in your own life, would you want somebody cheering for you while your man was rolling around with somebody else? What is the fascination with this mistress?
I agree. It's so true. I think it's one of the main reasons Scandal's so successful, because it's provocative on that exact issue. We all want. Here's why I think it is. I think that the idea of doing what's forbidden is just really sexy and exciting. I think also the idea that there's the big love out there, that connection that is your soulmate, the one, that sexual, spiritual, emotional, intellectual connection with that one person. We want that to trump everything. And look, every marriage is difficult and has its difficulties. And you go through, patches in every marriage where you're like, wow, this is hard. Or, you go through ups and downs, and you always, I think, often secretly, we're in our day-to-day relationship, and you fantasize about what if I could jump out for a minute? You know what I mean? And so that's a fantasy. Then there's the other part of it, which I think is what's really compelling about it, and it's kind of what I referenced when you first asked about what's happening this season, is the nexus of fantasy meets reality. So and I think what most people find when they have affairs, frankly, is there's that erotic charge you have of that connection that's based on a fantasy. Yeah. Then you bring that into reality, and suddenly you're like, wait a minute, this is different.
this is like my marriage. You know, so there's that thing of of human beings exploring. Well, wait a minute. What is real? What's real? What's real relationship? What's real connection? What's real humanity? And we want Fitz and Olivia to get there. I do. Look, Fitz and Melly have a very damaged relationship for so many reasons, which is an outrageous extension, like we talked about what Shonda does, of a lot of marriages, but Fitz and Melly are like on steroids. And yet they love each other, and yet they hate each other, and yet they try, and yet they have a family, and they are family, and they're partners, but they're not. And and there are elements of that in every marriage. So I think those issues you raise are what makes the show compelling, and there is no easy answer. And we do feel ashamed that we crave that, and yet we I want to be, he should go back to his wife. What the hell? Some people hate me. They do. And other people, I fulfilled their fantasy, and it's neither. So anyway, it's a great question.
We have time for one more question over here.
Okay, so everyone wants to know, this is a big deal all over Twitter. Did you really fall asleep on Ellen, or were you just, acting?
I do this thing, it's sort of like a power nap, because I do it, as Ellen had fun with, I do this on set. It's the way I work. When all the craziness is going on around me, in order to keep myself in the zone, I can close my eyes and I sort of drop off. And sometimes I literally fall asleep and don't even realize it for something.
Sorry, I'm Team
Jake. On Ellen, I kind of was halfway in. I did what I do. It's like I go into sort of like meditation. It's sort of like a nap. It's sort of like falling asleep. What was weird about that is I thought Ellen was going to let me do it for 5 seconds and then go, okay, that's enough. Yeah, we get it. This is boring. She kept me there for over a minute. So I'd sort of go into that zone of maybe half asleep and then go,
we're going to have to talk about
what
that
is
later.
She doing? Is she going to attack me? Or, So it was a little bit of both.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. But Tony, thank you so much for being
Thanks,
here.
Yay!
Everyone tune in this week.
Thursday night.
So, one quick announcement for the group. Our next program will begin at 2:30 with Sarah Paulson. But in the meantime, if everybody please join in for refreshments.
I'm sorry, I am still Team Jake. No! Oh, you guys are so very welcome. Thanks for tuning in and everything. I really appreciate you guys. That was really cool. Everyone's going to go take pictures, but I ain't about that life. Jake is all right. Jake is hot. So I'm just gonna sit and talk with you guys. Oh, you still love me because I love Jake? Okay, all right. But no, I am really about that Jake life. Oh my God, look at how many people are up here. Yeah, so I'm really not about that. I'm gonna let them go ahead and do them and everything. You guys are so funny. But I can't wait. I've already went. I got me a bottle of Stella Rosa. Maybe get a bottle of Stella Rosa Black. And I will be watching Scandal. I'm gonna watch Grey's, I'm gonna watch Scandal, and hopefully, oh thank you, hopefully I can do How to Get Away with Murder, but I always fall asleep on that. What, like they said, he's a married man. You like How to Get Away with Murder? Okay, so I saw the recap show. Was it last Thursday? I need to get my makeup touched up. I just can't. I don't know. I can't. It's alright. I do want to know who killed what is it? I always say the crackhead. Who killed the crackhead girl and left her underneath the steps? I do want to know who killed her. Well, you know I'm always in the gossip, so especially when it comes to Scandal. They're gonna get a divorce, but not without a fight. So that's the latest that I have from my insiders, my fellow Scandal groupies. But she's not gonna go without a fight. Sorry. They are so about that picture life. I can't. I hope I can catch him and get a picture, but I'm not about to bum rush the dude. And it is hot. Y'all see I'm sweating. It is hot in here. Yeah, I am extremely tired by the end of How to Get Away with Murder. I watched Grace, I watched Scandal, and then I'm out. I'm drained. I mean, but how much fight can Millie really put up? I mean, she wants to be, what is she, like the senator of Virginia or something now? Yes, he is fine in person. His skin is like so freaking smooth. Let me see if I can go in with the crowd, and I'm gonna zoom you guys in. Hold on, let me switch the camera back. Oops, sorry, let me get in this way. So there he is from the back. I'm extremely tall. I'm like 5'11" and I have on heels, so I'm getting him from an up angle for you guys. Okay, if I get a picture, I'm gonna have to stop broadcasting, you guys. Oh, and I can't. He has to go. Say bye, you guys. I would have to say about 5'9", 5'10". I'm 5'11", and without my heels on, I would be taller than him. So it is packed in here. All right, you guys. Hopefully you guys got your little Fitz fix until Scandal starts up again this Thursday. I'm gonna try and tweet about it, and if I can get more interviews, I will definitely put it on Periscope again, excuse me, for you guys. But I only really know like the PR people from Paramount, so I can probably, like I did one with Megan Fox and everything, so if I can, I'll definitely put it on Periscope for you guys to check out. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. See you guys later.